Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Today we are going to do a magic trick. We are going to turn napkins into coasters or Christmas ornaments. Well, you know what? You can turn napkins into pretty much anything. And in this video, I'm going to show you one idea. We are going to make easy mixed media coasters using napkins in this video. So this beautiful napkin comes from Ninny's Napkins. It's called Gnomes on a Light Chain, and it is absolutely adorable. Now, I could take 1/4 of this and put it on a card. I can take one part of it, one gnome, and put it on a card. But today, I'm going to turn it into a coaster or a Christmas ornament because I just think that these are adorable. Now, I've got round coasters, wooden coasters, and ornaments, and I've got these square ones. And I'm using my window template to decide, and I'm going to do them on the square wooden ones. I've got a surplus of these. Now I've given these a coat or two of gesso to prepare the wood. These are wooden coasters that I bought off of Amazon, and I'll link them if I can find them. Now, here's 1/2 of the napkin, and to prepare the napkin for my purposes or any purpose, you always want to remove the 2 excess plies. Here, both of those excess plies are coming off in one fell swoop. Sometimes you got to do one at a time. Now I can play with this and decide where it's going to go. So 1/2 of the napkin is going to make me 6 coasters or 6 ornaments. That's great return on your money. Now, I only want part of this. And as you saw when I put the window template on, they really didn't quite fit. So I am just going to water cut with my fine liner brush, put a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to put a bead of water down here and then let it sit for a minute, or not even a minute, a couple seconds, and just pull it apart little by little. I like to remove as much of the excess napkin as I can. I just find it cleaner that way, but because my background is white and the napkin is white, it's going to disappear. Watch out for those hidden words or trademark marks. You want to make sure that you take that off. Now, with this Christmas lights on there, I didn't go all the way around the balls because I thought that was just too finicky. So I left some of the napkin on there. If I was doing it again, I might actually go a little bit closer as I really didn't like that look. But you do you. You make it as easy or as you can for yourself and what your skill set is. Because you could just cut out the gnome and forget the light and just draw that in afterwards. In fact, there are multitude of ways that you could have done this. If I was doing this again, I might have done the entire background first. But the reason I'm going to glue the gnomes down first is there's a lot of white kind of through the beard, and I did not want any marks from the background that I had put in showing through that beard. I wanted to keep the beard clear and, a good focal image. So here I'm just continuing to water cut. And no, I don't show you every single one. In fact, as I repeat myself as I'm doing this, I fast forward or I just cut out that part of the video. Once you get the idea, it's repeat, repeat, repeat. And I love doing things kind of assembly line fashion. You're doing, here I'm doing 6 coasters or 6 ornaments because if I drilled a hole in it, they could be ornaments as well. So I'm just pulling off the excess and then placing them on the square wooden coasters. Now, when I'm placing it on the coasters, I want this to look like a set of 6 coasters, but I also want each one to be unique. So I'm playing with the orientation and I'm making sure that there's some place on here that I can put a sentiment or a word if I want to. Now I'm taking fluid matte medium and I'm going to glue it down. And the reason I'm gluing it down before I do the background is because I don't want anything to show through the beard of my gnomes. And if I colored the background or I did some stamping on it, that would show through and it would wreck my focal image. So I position my focal image. I'm giving a good coat of the fluid matte medium, applying with a brush, and then I'm putting some fluid matte medium on top to seal the napkin in and turn it into a non-porous surface. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know down the road I'm going to do some overpainting and some shading. And if it was a raw napkin, I'm going to get a very distorted and ugly effect. So I really want to make sure that I put some fluid matte medium on top to seal it or to turn it into a non-porous surface. You got to be gentle though, because napkins, when they get wet, get very fragile. I was going to paint the background yellow and then paint the bulbs a different color. And I actually did one as a sample and I didn't like it. So I went back to the drawing board, kind of got rid of that sample and stuck with just the black. I like the simplicity of this. So I am going slow in real life and I'm being gentle because I do not want to rip the napkin. But for the sake of the video, I am speeding it up. Now, part of the light has disappeared. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Now, the background here, I had put a coat of gesso, but that was actually last year and they got packed away, gessoed, and I never used them. And so they were kind of smudged and they weren't pure white. So I am just applying another coat of gesso here just to whiten and brighten the background because I'm not applying color to it. And I am using an angle brush and white acrylic paint to get that white and bright. I find using an angle brush really helps to easily get into those nooks and crannies around that focal image. Now, I could have painted my background white before I glued down my focal image, and I should have. It would have been easier, but I didn't know at that point in time. I thought I was going to be painting it yellow, and when I changed my mind, I decided I needed to brighten the white. So sometimes you don't know what you will need to do until you need to do it, and you need to kind of backtrack, or you need to maybe take it and do something a little bit harder than it should be. But I made the mistake. So if you like the white background here, you don't have to make the mistake. You can just make sure you got white and bright. Here I've taken my Posca marker and I'm just extending the Christmas lights. They didn't quite fit because I was taking it from a napkin, so I'm just building on and adjusting it so it fits the size of my coaster. If I was using the round coaster, it might have fit a little bit better. I might not have had to do so much of this. But you really can't tell that I've added to the string of lights on them. I just wanted the string of lights to go the complete span of the coaster. In fact, had I cut out the lights, I could have done that, put the string of lights anywhere, and that might have given even more interest to it. So if you don't want to cut around the lights, you can cut them off. When you do the water cutting, just glue the gnome in and draw the Christmas lights in wherever you want them to. Now, I wanted to brighten the bulbs and I needed to add some bulbs there. What I missed out here is I painted a little bit of gesso on those bulbs, and then I'm coming in with my Inktense pencil in a bright yellowish orange color. I'm coloring it in and I'm adding water to activate it and painting those bulbs in. So I'm adding bulbs to the string of lights and I'm tweaking the color using my Inktense blocks. Now you can do the same thing using acrylic paint if you wish, or Posca pens, paint pens. And I use my Inktense pencil here and I go back and I add more color till I get the depth of color and shade of color that I want. So I kind of go back and forth and I play a little bit, adding a couple colors, a little bit of burnt sienna, I think, and then some more yellow. And I keep playing with it till I get the color that I like. And I know down the road I'm going to shade, I'm going to outline. And so this is just the first step. And let me tell you, the size and shape of those bulbs is far from perfect. But when you look at it in its completed form at the end, you don't register that. So don't be too hard on yourself if the bulb isn't perfectly formed or shaped. Embrace the imperfection of it. That's what makes it special. If you wanted to change the color of bulbs, I recommend putting a coat of white gesso to push back that yellow and then applying with acrylic paint or Inktense pencil or whatever color medium you want and paint those bulbs the color that you want them to be. And, honestly, that was my initial plan, but then I changed it. I liked the contrast of the black, red, and yellow, and I kept it super, super simple. Inktense pencils or blocks are great. They are very translucent. They're easy to apply and they are permanent, unlike watercolors, which is why I use them. I tend to use all my color mediums tend to be permanent when they're dry. I just like them for the ease that represent. They're never going to smudge. I don't have to worry about if I varnish something, and I know I'm going to varnish these, so I don't want anything to smear and wreck all the work that I've done. So I just work my way through all of them, tweaking it until I get it exactly the way I like it. There I'm just activating it with water and building up the depth of color. I spent an awful lot of time painting those light bulbs, I tell you, till I just had it right. So if you're doing the same, you're in good company. So the background was just very plain white. And I just don't like when that is. I wanted to add something, but I did not want to have it overpower the focal image. So I chose gold paint and this ocean um, seaweed kind of stencil, and I'm putting it in the background. It's smaller scale. It's adding that little bit of gold, little bit of bling, which I love, and adding a little bit of interest in a very, very subtle way. And again, I was of two minds here about what color. Did I want to put in teal? In my house, I have kind of that coral, red, the yellow, and teal. That is a lot of colors that I use at Christmas time. And I wanted to put teal into here, but it just didn't seem to fit. So I'm just going on and I'm going as close as I can to the gnome without going over top of the gnome. But, there is some overlap to be completely honest. And when I do the overpainting, I get rid of that. I love how that worked. Here's the all white one. There's the one with a little bit of subtle detail. Which one do you like? So now that I am happy with my choices, I am just going and applying it to all of them. I could have put some snowflakes in the background if I had a small scale snowflake. I could have left it white if that's what you like best. There is no right or wrong. There's what you like and what you choose. Now, I was undecided what I wanted to do next, so I am basically edging my page. You've seen me do that in an art journal page. I want to paint the sides of the coasters black to kind of white them out. You could leave them all natural, the natural wood color. And I'm applying the black paint with the makeup sponge. That's kind of doing a bit of a wraparound and it's framing the coaster. And this, I think, just made the world of difference. When I got to this point, it was like, yes, I like this. This is all going to work out. The black around the edge ties in with the black of his shoes, the gray that's in there, and I'm also going to stamp the sentiment on here with black paint. And everything, all that contrast is going to all work together. So I'm just going one by one, being careful to not get the black paint where I don't want it. I do press the black paint into the makeup sponge so it's not all globby on it. You don't want it globby because that's just going to potentially make a mess. So you're working it into the makeup sponge. I'm outlining the light bulbs because I painted over them and then some of them I actually added. They didn't have the black lining that some of them had. So I'm just using my Secura glaze pen and sketchily going around the bulbs. And I don't try to make it perfect. You're not going to because it's textured and it doesn't come out exactly right. Go sketchy. Go, simplistic. Embrace the imperfections. Outlining it also makes it stand out from the gold that's in the background. Because I had the black paint out from edging it, I am putting it on with the makeup sponge onto my wooden letter stamps, and I'm stamping the word joy on each coaster. I chose just the same word on each one, but I'm positioning it differently on each coaster. So again, they're definitely a set, but each one is just a little bit unique. And then there's no comparison because you've deliberately tried to make it different. I'm putting it on with the makeup sponge, kind of using the makeup sponge and the acrylic paint like a stamp, pressing down. Now, if I made a mistake here, I can take a baby wipe and wipe it off because it's acrylic paint. It'll come off and then I can reapply. Here I got a little bit of a smudge there and I can just, again, remove it with some TLC and a baby wipe. I'm not trying to make the letters straight. In fact, it's a little bit more fun to kind of have them and down and random. Sometimes I'm putting them a little closer together. Sometimes I'm putting them further apart. Just depends on where I put the focal image. You have to make it work. At the end, I will make sure that I wash the acrylic paint off of my letter stamps. Now I want to overpaint. So I'm grabbing some gray paint that I've watered down, and I have my liner brush, and I'm applying the hair of the beard with the liner brush. And I'm not really following what's already there. I'm adding more, and I'm putting an undertone of gray in the beard. This is just going to give the painterly effect, and it's going to bring out the focal image. Now, you can just glue down that focal image, the napkin, and leave it like that. It looked perfectly fine. This is just value added if you're willing to try. But if you aren't, you can just use the focal image as it is, or overpaint just certain things and leave out others. So I'm just putting gray. Some add more, some add less. Again, I'm not trying to make them all look alike. And then I come with white acrylic paint, again, slightly thinned. It just makes it easier to use the liner brush. And I'm putting white over top of that gray. And that gives you that mixed, hairy type look. So it looks like hair. Just working my way through all of them. Now, if you wanted to put that focal image on a colored background, what I would have done is glued the napkin onto copy paper and then cut it out. And then that would be glued onto whatever colored background, and it would make sure that what's the background doesn't come through the beard or the light parts of the napkin. Here I'm just now brightening up, darkening the colors, the black, the red. I do the nose as well. And some of that, I think the black and the nose I do on camera, and the red somehow I lost that footage. But just know I painted it all. And I'm just using watered down acrylic paint. Here I'm just applying flesh color to the nose, and then I'm coming with the Inktense block and adding some red to it. Using acrylic paint is a little thicker than the Inktense blocks, and that gives a more of a painterly effect because you can see a little bit more texture. But because these are coasters, I don't want texture on here. I want it to be flat because I'm going to be putting cups on it. So using, you know, anything that's highly textured or putting modeling paste on it isn't going to work. If I was making ornaments, absolutely. Add texture. And again, I'm just playing with the colors of the nose. Nobody's going to see the original to compare. So have at her. Do what you want. Now I'm going to shade around the gnome, and I'm going on top of the napkin and I'm shading it. This is just bringing out the focal image from the background and bringing out some of the details of it. I'm also shading the nose, the gloves, the lights. I shade all of it using my angle brush and black acrylic paint, using the floating acrylic shading technique that I use all the time. And I will link that video where I teach this shading technique. It is one that once you learn it, you're going to use it on every single mixed media art journal project that you do. So I'm just working my way around all of these, just bringing them up. And you can see the difference. Can you skip this step? Yes, you can, but it is value added. And I'm painting the gray parts of the hat there. I'm just darkening that up just a smidge as well as I'm shading. Now remember, when I glued down the napkin, I put a coat of the fluid matte medium on top to make it a non-porous surface. And this is why, doing the overpainting and especially the shading. If this was just raw napkin, it would bleed into the napkin and be rather unsightly. It would not give you an effect that you liked. So after doing all the shading, which of course I did not record all of it, now I'm adding some bright whites to it. I've got my liner brush, I've thinned my white paint down a bit, and I'm just adding the white stripes to the hat and the dots on, there's one of the gnome hats there that are white. I'm just brightening it up and adding some um, little curls on the nose, on the shoes, and just adding even more white to the beard if I see that it needs it. It's all those little details in the finishing process. I just love these gnomes. They just make me smile. So I'm going to enjoy using them as coasters in this Christmas season. These also make great gifts and great craft fair makes that you can sell. And out of one napkin, you can make, well, there's 12 different gnomes or 12 gnomes. You can make 3 sets of 4 coasters. And once you figure out exactly how to do it, it's very quick. Make good stocking stuffers too. Now I wanted some to make the fur of the hats stand out, but I didn't want this to be texture, so I'm not going to put modeling paste. If this was a ornament, I'd put modeling paste and make it actually 3D. But here I'm just kind of stippling it, and it's giving that effect that it's fur or somehow different than the hair. And again, it's just brightening it up. I'm using white acrylic paint and just kind of a stippling motion there. So it looks like it's textured, but it's flat. If you like gnomes, you may want to go check out at Ninny's Napkins. I've got a sentiment pack all about gnome sayings, and I have a digital um, art lesson as well. Gnome book, I believe it's called, and you can put together an entire project as I guide you through it step by step. I'll link that in the description box below and at the iCards at the end of the video. Here I've used my fine line applicator and I'm doing faux stitching around each of the coasters. I love this effect, but you can leave it off if that's not you. I just think this finishes it off as that little bit of detailing makes it all work together. So there's one with the faux stitching and there's one without. Which one do you like? And there is the complete set. Now, if you're making the coasters, you want to use heavy duty, something that's heat resistant. You don't want to put a hot coffee cup on there and have it leak or start sticking. If I am just doing the Christmas ornament, I'm going to use the polycrylic Minwax. And I'm going to give it 2 coats. Both of them are satin finish. Then I have these cork peel and stick that I will add to my coasters. And again, I got these from Amazon and it's just super easy to peel and stick and you have a coaster. If I was making this as an ornament, I might just either paint the background or attach a Christmas napkin to it. Just glue a Christmas napkin with fluid matte medium. So there we have the finished project. A lot of decisions to make along the way, but in the end, I'm very happy with what I ended up with. Let me know what you think. Here are some close-ups of the finished coasters. Until next time, go get creative.